I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. This is the September 7th, 2017 meeting of the Villanova CICD Care Group. First order of business is to adopt our agenda, which we have in front of us, so I'll entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
Seconded. Seconded, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 7-0. Next is approval of the minutes, which we received. I presume that you've had a chance to look at them, so I'll entertain a motion to accept our minutes. Okay, okay, good, thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Very good, approved 7-0.
Oh, we got an abstain.
You got abstain, okay, 6-0. All right, thank you, Bob. Still passes?
Aye.
I'm sorry, do you have a comment?
I read them, but we weren't here.
Very good. You know what? You're right. You're right. All right. So let's do this again. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All any abstaining? All right. Well, then it looks like we still have it 4-3. So we have passed.
That's still enough.
No, we're good. 4-3, or 4 yeses and 3 abstain, three abstains. Very good. Next item up is chair report, and I welcome everyone back from the summer and. Hope we have a nice beginning, a safe beginning to a fall. But other than that, I have no specifics of a report because we should just get right into our meeting. And that leads us to the first item of business, which is a review, which is an overview of the recent construction activity. And usually we turn to Steve Narsini for a look from the township's perspective on how that has all gone. So, Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this point, I guess I had said this once before, so from the engineering standpoint, our inspections are really more limited to E&S, items like that. Most of the improvements that are taking place are not public improvements at this point, right? They're on-site, so we do monitor, we make sure they're installed because we do have approvals to provide, but at this point it's truly a building construction project with all the buildings going up. So I have nothing new to report, sir, other than we've had no issues of mention.
Could you just explain what E&S is, just for the world?
Yes, ma'am. That's erosion and sedimentation control. So, and I must say, so on the first project, we did have issues with this in the first phase. Villanova took great strides with their contract for their contractors to address this. I've had contractors come up to me to speak to me about this, so they are on top of it. And I'm not saying that nothing will ever happen. It's a construction project, and sometimes there's a road truck that could bring mud out on a road. But they've done the yeoman's job of keeping that site, keeping any mud in that site on that site.
Thank you.
And I'll add, too, that I think probably the most significant public interaction would have been the recent putting in of the span for the bridge across Lancaster Avenue, which caused the need for shutting down for 3 nights Lancaster Avenue, and we had a great detour set up for that, and Radnor Police did a super job of doing that. I took the opportunity to, around 8:30 or so, about half an hour after it started, to kind of run from both sides and see how it went, just because a lot of it would have affected neighbors in my ward. And I found no real significant problems. In fact, the traffic was pretty light because of the time of year, I think, actually. There was one thing when Aldwyn Lane seemed to get a lot of people because just the way people were interpreting the signage to take a right, should have been going down Sproul Road. I made a note to it to the Chief Colarulo, and it looks like they changed one thing right at that point to kind of block off a little bit, in a sense, Aldwyn Lane. Which meant that people took a right on 320, which is what they were supposed to do as part of the plan for the detour. And I checked on that the following night, and that's the way it worked. So I think it all worked out pretty good. So congratulations to you for planning it and for getting it done. I know you wanted to make sure you got it done in 3 nights, and I mean, you did. And to the police department for enforcing that detour without any incident that I've heard about. Anyway, so thanks. Is there any comment that you want to make about an overview of the recent construction activity?
I think the police department was a big help. Our contractors contacted them and asked them to man the 3 different areas, which was very helpful in not having anyone kind of try to go through those horses. So it was great. We appreciated the support.
Thank you. Next item up is communication, which is an update on the phases and the project. We have two that we look at. One is the residence halls, and the other is the pedestrian bridge. So I'll let you take it in any order that you'd like.
So the residence halls, we are, as you can see, we're moving along. I think we're on the third floor of the first complex and sort of on the second floor for the second complex. And then at the far end on the east side, is that you? On the east side, we're lagging there. And that was just a result of the enormous size of the basement there and the steel that had to go in. So the plan is still to be kind of roof trusses on and sheathing done for the first complex by winter time, so say December, January, and shortly we'll be starting the stone on the outside. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but there's a little house that is parallel to the tracks, and that is our mock-up for what we're using as a control sample. So to make sure that the masons install the stone in that color variety that we're looking at with the mortar colors that we have there, kind of trying to set everything up so that if we start to see stuff on the building that doesn't look like it's good quality, we can refer back to the mock-up and show them this is what we accept it and this is what we expect. So it's a control sample. We're not 100% done it yet, but once that is finished, they will be allowed to start running stone up the outside of the buildings. So that's moving along. It's not probably what I had told you last time because, again, every time there's in construction, when there's anything that comes up, you modify and make a different move. So, the 2C building is definitely the far end on the east side is lagging, and we're trying to put some effort into that as well to, it doesn't help us to finish one side and not bring the rest up at the same time. So housing is pretty much going well right now. I think you can see out on Ithan Avenue, Pico is there running gas, and that gas is for it's for housing plus for future extension into our neighborhoods. So they are halfway done the project. They're on the north side of Lancaster at this point, and hopefully the traffic will subside a little bit as a result of them being there. The north side does not have as much rock as what we experience in Lancaster Avenue and Ithan. Like that whole area is just one big rock pile, so it's tough to get through. That's the gas. Pico is also going to run a service to this site, and they're supposed to start in September, but that starts on Montgomery Avenue and kind of works its way south, and then there will be another service that comes from South Ithan. I'm not sure if it's a Conestoga. I'm not exactly sure where it's coming, but there's coming from two different directions. And the one that's coming from Conestoga north, I believe, will be up high. So it won't be, I don't believe it's going to be excavated on Ithan Avenue, but I'm not 100% sure of that because it kind of changes on a daily basis. Trying to think of the bridge. There was something else. The bridge, you can see, we have finished the installation of the concrete beams across Lancaster Avenue. That's, you see there's some platforms up there that are going to be used for men to work on. I think you see orange shirts and white helmets up there. They're preparing that area to pour concrete and to pour their slab for the walkway. There's been, as everyone knows, we have a grant through the state, and we're doing a portion with PennDOT, and we're doing another portion privately. And we also have a partner with SEPTA in tying into their bridge. So there's a lot of moving targets and trying to control the schedule has been a bit difficult. So what was supposed to be finished December 6th or in December is behind schedule because we are still working with PennDOT on the precast that crosses Lancaster Avenue and trying to get that approved by them. So I don't have a good time frame on when we will finish, except I would hope by the next meeting I could give you a more definite schedule completion, but we are not on schedule for that portion because that's sort of on hold, this segment 6 that crosses Lancaster Avenue. Segments 2 through 5, which are from SEPTA Route 100, or the R100, to Lancaster Avenue, have been released, and they will start to come out to be erected in middle of October through November. So we're working on it, but it's not going to be finished when we anticipated it being finished. On the north side, we're doing that privately through Torcon, and that's moving ahead, so that should be done sooner than the rest, but we're just trying to get as much done as we can so that when they release this segment 6, we can kind of connect the whole thing together. I think a question came up about, and I could wait until questions, but the question came up about the platform during construction. And tentatively, we are scheduled with SEPTA to shut down the R100 Villanova station in November, December timeframe. Again, until all these panels come out, we can't really pinpoint the exact date. What we've worked with SEPTA is that they will only we'll shut this down for a month to make our connection, and then when we are complete that, they're going to shut down the stadium stop, and this will be open. So they won't shut down both stations at the same time. When we're shut down, all the patrons they'll notify their riders that they will be using the stadium station while this is out of commission. And I think that's all for both of those projects now.
Okay. I have a question on that, just to help clarify. When you say that the pedestrian bridge is not hitting the schedule that you have, that in no way means the final need for that to be, because I know that you need to have that bridge in place before you have certificates of occupancy of your dorms. So, but you're not referring to that in any way, shape, or form. You're just talking about your internal scheduling, not the final completion of the project.
No, it will definitely be done before September 2019. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully it'll be done by graduation this year at the very latest. If we can make it sooner, again, as soon as I get this, one step at a time.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
And I understand the uncertainties.
We
I just-
understand
yeah.
the implication that without that, no CO.
No, I understand.
Right.
I just want to make it clear for those who are
Right.
watching that that's really what you meant, not the entire project.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
And part of it, may open in phases so that we can continue to move on.
Open what in phase?
So the bridge itself, because it's not following the timeline that we were trying to follow, and that if we don't make the connection to SEPTA by, I would say, January, and this is an indefinite, by January, they'd like to do a renovation to their stadium station, which will take them 9 months to do their ADA upgrades on Stadium Station. So that would be 9 months before we could make our connection to the R100. So we're trying to make that beforehand and open our bridge at the elevator stair tower area. So temporarily have it open to there while we're doing the precasts across Lancaster Avenue.
Got it. No.
So we'll be, we're working with our designers as well as PennDOT to do that and maybe possibly open it up in phases so that we can make the date with SEPTA.
Understand. Because you're juggling a lot of other schedules, including SEPTA's on that. Now, they were not to do any, they were not going to do any upgrade to that station, though, were they? Like they're doing to the stadium station?
They are not talking about it at this time. That they did say that because we were doing our side, that would trigger them to have to do something, but they have nothing in the works on the architectural tables right now for that. They're concentrating on Stadium Station and upgrading that.
Okay, great, thank you. And the other question I have is about the Lancaster Avenue work. I know now they're doing some things that kind of has a lane closure during the daytime now, and I think that's Pico doing that, is that right? They're in the middle of Lancaster Avenue and 9th and doing work.
That's the gas line, yes,
That's the gas
Pico.
line. Okay. And how long will they be in the street doing that, do you think?
They should be out of Lancaster Avenue by the end of this week, and on Ithan Avenue, the north side. And they will take that trench all the way down to County Line Road
I see.
and make their connection there.
Okay. And there will be other times, for reasons similar to that, that Lancaster Avenue will still have lane closures between now and the end of the year?
Absolutely. Part of the bridge project, they have a permit to shut down, lanes when they need it. They're trying not to do that. When they hang the precast on the span that crosses Lancaster Avenue, they are hoping to talk to PennDOT and get a permit so that they can do another night closure and get it all done in one night versus doing it over a 6 to 10 day stretch of hanging it and causing traffic backups.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Rick, I know that was one of your questions about the 100 station there. At this point, do you want to just, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I've been approached by a couple of regular R100 riders who are outbound riders in the morning, and they were concerned about what sorts of adjustments they need to make to their schedules should that platform be closed. I think you basically answered it. I'm quite curious about SEPTA's plans. I mean, if SEPTA intends, because of as I'm hearing you explain it, it sounds like SEPTA feels that they must upgrade, or it's going to be incumbent upon them to upgrade that station to be ADA compliant because of steps you're taking on the bridge. Is that correct? The bridge improvements are somehow going to motivate them to do something to the station?
On the north side, because we are making the south side ADA accessible, they feel that that's something that will trigger them to have to make the north side ADA accessible. However, it's not been in their master plan to do, and what's in their master plan is to work on Stadium Station right now and make that ADA accessible on both the north and south sides.
So you're going to make improvements on the south side of the Villanova station, the R100? I'm sorry. No. They will, the south side, it will trigger them to do an ADA upgrade on the south side because we're doing it on the north side. I'm sorry. Okay, so.
I keep thinking Lancaster Avenue, so I'm on the south side. And
Right. So in terms of the north side of the Villanova station, what improvements are you making in terms of the ADA compliance? You're not talking about the elevator. The elevator is neither here nor there as far as. The elevator has no contribution to make to ADA compliance for the platforms.
We are ramping down to the platform.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Okay.
So, Rick, my understanding from SEPTA, and my conversations aren't as current as Mary Lou's, but they're tackling the entire line in some form or fashion, and I think they're finishing up at Gulf Mills now. They've done some of the stops in Ardmore. I don't know what the rhyme or reason is.
Well, the R100 station in back of the old Wyeth building it's a temple now. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So they're tackling them all.
Yeah.
They're just not doing them in order. So to Mary Lou's point, they'll get to it at some point, but our work hasn't seemed to have moved their efforts on that station up at all. And so I don't think it's them ignoring it. I just think they got a plan they're following. And,
right.
Yeah.
Well, the reason this is interesting and potentially important is how SEPTA defines or accepts its obligation under the ADA law. If they think that, for example, outbound riders at the Villanova station are accommodated by merely providing a ramp, what you're describing doing, just a ramp from the north side parking areas so that outbound ADA riders will park on the north side, will know to park on the north side, so to take their trip up to Norristown. And that's, as far as their obligation extends, that's one thing. If, however, SEPTA feels like they have to accommodate the scenario in which an inbound rider, someone going to Philadelphia or to 69th Street, say, who needs ADA help and parks on the north side, that person obviously is going to need to go up and over the bridge and down again the other side. That's a vastly different engineering solution, and it doesn't sound like SEPTA is going in that direction.
Well, I don't want to speak for SEPTA, but
Right.
as someone who lives further down and has seen some of the work that they've done in Ardmore and Haverford, they've taken their responsibilities for AD access very seriously. At the
Right.
Wynwood Road Bridge, this series of switchbacks they've created right there by Wynwood Ladens is amazing. So again, without speaking for them, I think this is something that's on their radar, probably moved up on their radar, but just not next in the queue necessarily.
Okay.
So, but I would yield to them. I don't want to
Yeah.
speak for them.
Well, because obviously, if they're going to go to with an elaborate ramping system and switchbacks, that's going to vastly increase the footprint of the station, which will in turn displace parking spots on the south side, my side. That parking lot is going to expand. That involves the triangle.
We've
and so
offered
forth.
them the space that they need on our property to do a ramp. So I would hope that when they get there, that would be the engineering solution they pick first rather than take away from what's already there.
Good. I had one or two other questions.
Oh,
About this.
okay.
Yeah, about Mary Lou's report. The gas, who's getting this gas? Is that just PECO sort of globally improving its service to the neighborhoods, or is that something you were requiring for the dorms? Who needs this gas?
Yes, as I said, they're bringing the service to us, and they're extending it further. So we need gas for the dorms, and this is the gas line that they are bringing to us and stubbing off for future.
What's gas powered in the dorms?
The heat?
The boilers, I mean,
This
would you-
is what I'm curious
should
about.
I?
I went to a school where there was one central heating plant, and it was all piped underground vast distances. So I'm just curious. I didn't know that each dorm was going to be individually heated by gas. Cool. All right.
Water? No.
Well, it's going into our central utility plant, which is part of the 2C basement. That's why that basement is so large. That is going to be our main mechanical space for this campus.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Good to know.
Are you done?
No, I am not.
Oh, sorry.
The precast, what we saw hung so far over Lancaster is not, in fact, the footpath, the treadway. That's just the stringer that will support the eventual. So where people will actually walk is actually higher than what we're seeing right now.
That's correct. Probably 4 inches higher.
Okay. All right. I'm done. Thank you.
You're done. I just have a quick question. Once the dorms are up, this is way in the future, but I was thinking this in the shower, which is why I do my best thinking. The new dorms are supposed to be upperclassmen, is that correct? More or less, give or take?
Yes.
Are they allowed to drive? And if so, is the parking garage big enough to accommodate all of them and all of the day students and all the world that come?
Sure. I'll tackle it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, they're allowed to drive. Our upperclassmen are driving there, well, they were driving there when it was a surface lot. So instead of driving there, they'll be living there. Some of them will have their cars. What we've experienced on our West Campus is a reduction in car use. I'm not going to use data to cite how many cars I think will be reduced, because I think that behavior will change over time. But our current parking is the same as it was before, is the same as it will be in the future. Our students aren't changing, so we believe the parking is there to satisfy those needs.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Great,
Second.
thanks. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for your answers.
No, it's fine.
Did you have another comment on it? Okay, good, thank you. Next item up is planning. We have two sets of things there. First is a status of the traffic adaptive system for Lancaster Avenue. That was part of the conditional use that allowed this all to take place. And Chris, you kind of raised that question, so why don't I pass it over to you?
Sure. You know, as part of the conditional use approval, one of the conditions was for us to contribute to half the cost of a traffic adaptive system, I think at 5 or 6 intersections. We did that at a cost of $175,000. So Mary Lou just talked about some of the work that's still going on, but by and large, the traffic improvements have been made, and the activity has been relatively settled. So we were just curious if there's any report on when that system might be implemented. I know the township is responsible for coming up with the other half.
If I may, Commissioner, so we've applied for 2 grants for that system, and we were not successful with either. So the thought is we're going to hopefully we'll come to the board and apply for another grant, and the $175,000 from Villanova would be included as part of our match. We did find out when I spoke to the PennDOT rep, we thought this was a great grant application because this is a critical corridor, and PennDOT, should be all for this. But they wanted to see our project go further, so through the Blue Route interchange. So when the next one comes up and we go to the board, we will include that. And at this point, it didn't seem prudent to work on 1 or 2 intersections with the money from Villanova when we can use that for a match for a system that will do a segment of Lancaster Avenue. So for lack of a better term, that money is held in abeyance with the township. We do note that when we do our grant applications, and it would be if we got a grant and then there's a township match and we use that match, the idea would be to do the entire system, then just work on 2 intersections or 3 intersections right at Villanova. Now, if the grant applications are unsuccessful, and we look at this from a capital standpoint, we can always move on a few of those intersections with that money. But that's where that stands at this point.
Well, if we can be helpful at all, either in speaking to the elected officials and putting, a partnership behind it, to indicate our support, we'd be happy to do that.
Greatly accepted, and we will ask for that letter when we go on the next round.
All right, very good.
Thank you. And next item up is some questions that Rick had proposed that he would like to put on the agenda. So I know one of them has already been answered about the R100 platform during the construction, but there's a couple others.
Yeah, I myself have witnessed and have heard from other people that the right-in, right-out driveway mouth from the parking garage going north directly to Lancaster Avenue, that left turns have been witnessed there. It requires a little bit of tight driving and a good deal of care and quickness on the part of the driver, but it is possible to do it. And I'm wondering if the pork chop or the turns need to be adjusted in such a fashion that it becomes physically impossible for somebody to manage that turn. It's a thought, but I think if that becomes a trend, that's a problem there.
Any comment, Steve?
So obviously this all went through the design process and the review process. So to Mr. Leonardi's question, I haven't witnessed it, and I don't know how many times or how often this happens. It met the requirements from PennDOT, from our traffic engineer. Not saying that someday, if a change would be needed, we would gladly go to Villanova and address that. I just don't have any data to move forward on that.
Well, to that point, I wonder if when all is said and done, and post September of 19, once the dorms are in and the permits have been issued and the people are parking as envisioned, I wonder if some comprehensive traffic study wouldn't be advisable at that time, just to take a really good look at how things have worked out, how things have eventuated, and how closely to prediction the eventual reality actually turns out to be.
I mean, I get that, I agree with that, because considering the pine tree craziness, you know, what was thought of as a really good idea of putting islands in to slow traffic down has turned out to be not so hot. But, so living with it after you get, sometimes you cannot foresee every single solitary consequence of what you think is a perfect plan or close to perfect plan. You know, when reality hits, it needs adjustments and things like that. And I would think that you would be, you know, if people are starting to cross every traffic the wrong way or not following signs, that either we can post a policeman out there or something that will discourage them from doing that type of behavior, so that we don't have any problems with pedestrians or people or machinery.
Steve, I have a question. What is the policy, or not policy, what is the practice? What's the best management practice? After you've had a very complex traffic engineered situation and design, do people generally go back and say, well, here's what we thought it was going to be, and here's how it's really working out? Is that usually done, or how often is it done?
To be honest, I'm not aware of that happening very often. So, you know, the applicant or whomever that may be, they hire a professional traffic engineering firm to do that work. In this case, the local government, Radnor Township, hires a traffic engineer to review it. And then because of a signal, right away PennDOT gets involved. And because it's Lancaster Avenue, which is a state-owned highway, they're involved. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and they do go back and look. My thought would be, without specifically having another study done, there will be, by the time, if we get the traffic adaptive system, new counts are going to have to be taken, because you can't go, we can't use what Villanova came to the table with and was reviewed by the time that occurs. So I think in that fashion, we'll have some sort of a check right there, in that we're going to have to do counts at these intersections to time things appropriately and to get the traffic adaptive system up and running. I mean, but a study could always be commissioned.
Right.
That's not a problem.
Right. Well, that's kind of where I thought you would end up with it, that we would have to do some counting, at least to make that traffic adaptive system work. And that would reveal, in most cases, any deficiencies or anything new that popped up. And it could be a springboard for that. I'm sure you'll be looking at that anyway from your own standpoint, and student safety and everything else. So let's keep it on our minds and see how you do that, especially as you go ahead and move towards that traffic adaptive system when that gets towards design on that. Thanks.
Oh, and one more little item.
Uh-huh.
When the road goes in that is next to the R100, that will be a two-way road. Is it behind the dorms? Will it not be a two-way street, quote unquote, alley?
It will not be a street. It will be an interior road to Villanova University. So it will be it'll be
It's two lanes, but.
two lanes in and out, yes.
Okay. And am I incorrect that when the discussion was going on, that at certain times, traffic will be directed up to St. Thomas Way to turn that way to go to the parking lots, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so, and then then you'd have to cross Ithan to get to the parking lot?
correct.
Okay, and let's say when you're having commencement or when you're having a big football game or whatever, that there will be police there to direct traffic at that quote unquote intersection?
Typically, they are.
They are, okay, yeah, because I'm.
And there's stop signs there, too, on both
Mrs.
sides.
Daly, the police were actually involved
Exactly.
when they went through this whole process. Their traffic management plan, and we had members of staff traffic that work Villanova regularly and are very familiar with the traffic. Specifically, one of the comments was, you know, we need the ability to bring traffic in or out through there, so it's
Okay.
been well vetted.
Okay, that's just quite, because I'm thinking of cars, it's people, children. You know, when it becomes a reality, it always looks good on paper. That's, so.
Very good. Thanks. Rick, you have another piece of your questions?
Not relative to this issue. Are we moving on to Stone Hall?
Yeah, no, yeah, move on to. if you're ready.
Oh, yeah, sure. Again, people are taking an interest in the retention basin, or not really behind Stone Hall, but sort of behind Farrell and Stone, between them and, behind that, in that area. One question is, I guess, is it working right? Whatever it is it's meant to do, is it doing it? The next question is it being controlled for mosquitoes? Because it is a pool of standing water. And I guess the third question was, oh yeah, as a as a potential drowning hazard, shouldn't it be fenced?
It's actually not a retention basin. It is a rain garden, and we're not convinced that it is working the way it's supposed to be working. We have our engineer looking at it, and the contractors coming back to check to see if actually, it's a clay bottom, because it does seem to be retaining water, which is not the ideal way it's supposed to work. So, no, I don't know about the fence idea.
I only bring it up because when Harriton High School was rebuilt, they wound up with a very similar feature, which they
Right.
wasted no time fencing, so.
Well, I don't know if that will be required or not. However, we are looking into, we're trying to figure out what actually caused it to not work properly before we go and just try to throw some fix at it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rick. And is there one more on your list? On the agenda?
Yeah, the ongoing discussion, I guess, about Valley Run. There was an item raised last meeting, kind of a point that knit together the two RTU reports. RTU, as far as contamination on the site, found elevated levels in a couple of spots. They're, I guess, convinced that they, by pure luck, I guess, happened to find the only two places where that lead can be found, and managed to put their probes exactly at the worst of the two places. Be that as it may, lead was found there. That's one finding. The other finding in the other report is, or the other item in the other report is the proposal to do a chemical assay of Valley Run. However, when asked, the person responsible for the report said that the chemical assay would not include a lead test, and a suggestion was made that inasmuch as lead is found in the site, shouldn't lead be tested for in Valley Run, if in fact that testing is to be done at all. I just want to get that on the record. I think, if you're finding lead on the site and you want to make sure the Valley Run is, as it flows downstream and into Clement Park and places further south, that, we should look for, yes, we should look for, whatever contaminants there be, but why not also at least look for a contaminant that we know to be present, and make sure that it's not actually infiltrating the watershed.
I don't know if I can actually throw that one to you because you weren't at the last meeting, so I don't know. Maybe you can speak, if you recall, my recollection, Rick, was that this was, there was an elevated amount of lead that was found, I think it was in one spot. I don't know if it was two, I think it was one. And they determined that it had not moved and it was not found in other adjacent areas. So they were.
In fact, they didn't test the adjacent areas. That's exactly the problem.
No,
I mean, basically, the report says we dropped this probe in this one spot.
Right.
We found double the amount of lead, and that's as bad as it gets. They don't know about 10 feet right or left, 10 feet south, north.
Well, they did say that there were other probes in the area that they did not find it. But
It's not in the RTU report, but okay.
In the RTU, that's right, in the RTU report. And Steve, do you recall that they found it at one depth, but did not find it at other depths? Which led them to conclude that it had not really permeated, that they were,
I honestly, so the soils report, that was some time ago, I
no, I
apologize. I
understand.
would need to re-review that.
Okay.
To really answer on that.
Right.
But we had the same firm do both analyses of the stream and the parking, the housing development, so.
right,
I think part of it would be incumbent on them if they saw something that they felt correlated between the two reports, that they should bring that to our attention, and we can definitely ask them of that. But again, it has been a long time since I really studied the soils report. I don't know. I know there's, when you talk to folks that test streams, macroinvertebrates is the real test for the health of a stream. It's the major test. What organisms are growing, because larger organisms feed on them, and so on up the food chain. Chemical testing absolutely can be done, and there's not a problem doing that. But chemical testing, for lack of a better term, can be fleeting in that unless there's some steady stream of some compound that goes through a stream, you might not get a valid sample all the time. That's why they often look to the macroinvertebrates, because if they're healthy, it's built on the fact that certain other items aren't present. But, I could pull a sample now and get certain readings, chemicals, if you will, and a day later, depending on that source and the frequency and duration of where that comes from, you may or may not see it again. But I will, if you wish, I can re-review those reports. We can talk to Ret too. I don't recall that the lead being called out. And these tests are done through ASTM standards, American Society of Testing Materials. So they're laid out as to how they're done, right? A phase 1, a phase 2. It's very specific. The phase 1 is the tabletop. The phase 2 is more detailed. So for lack of a better, they're not required when they find that to then take X samples, 1 foot, 2 foot, 5 foot, 10 foot. That's not what they're required to do unless there was something else encountered.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir. Yes,
we'll
Bob.
we'll ask Steve will look at those reports, but then also we'll ask them to take a water sample.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. And I was impressed with what they said. In fact, Steve, without even saying the meeting, you did actually capture what they did say about it, that they did not see that looking at samples of chemicals in the water stream would be an adequate measure of the health of the stream, but rather look at the macroinvertebrates and see what fish, plant, what life, what organisms are in there. And if they're there in the quantities and styles that they expect to find, then that's a more reasonable idea of the health of the stream, and that they found was pretty close to what they would have expected in an urbanized area there. But Bob, thanks for offering to do that. I think it's great, and we think we keep it in mind also to not only do it this time at some point, but to do it next year when we have planned to do comparative studies on that. So appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Rick. That was your length of questions, wasn't it, Rick, or was there others?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, good.
That plus the R100 platform question.
Yeah, the 100 platform was the last one, which we'd already tackled, so good, thanks. Good. Thank you very much. With that idea, we'll go up to new business, and I don't think there is any new business.
I have this.
You do, okay.
I just, because I know we won't be meeting again for a little while, I just wanted to make folks aware that we are in the process of negotiating an agreement for a liquor license that currently exists within the township for the restaurant that's going into the residence halls, the complex. We'll have more information at some point in the not-too-distant future, but between now and then, certainly an orange placard could go up at the site just indicating potential transfer of that. So I wanted folks to be aware that we're working on that process as well.
Okay, thanks for giving us an idea on that. Is that any different than what was already envisioned as
No.
part of their plan, as part of the conditional use?
That's consistent with the plan.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on that? No?
Now, I have two just not project-related FYIs for those who are watching, and I will send an email out from my neighbor's account. But we will have a brief fireworks display on campus on Saturday We have a special event taking place, and a short, I think it's 8 minutes, fireworks display will be happening between 8:45 and 9 o'clock is when it will begin. Certainly, folks are welcome to come to campus and watch what we call the Riley Ellipse in between Conley Center, Doherty, Kennedy, Core, and Austin Halls will be reserved for the event, but plenty of other great vantage spots for that if folks would like. And then also we will be hosting the funeral services for Raleigh Massimino on Monday and Tuesday, excuse me. Viewing on Monday, funeral service on Tuesday. We'll be working to get folks in and out as expediently as possible. We're working on adjusting our parking for that day, adding shuttles, and doing as much as we can to ease what will certainly be a busy day in the area, but folks should know that that's happening, especially the funeral mass, which I believe is at 10:30 on Tuesday, September 12th. Around that time, before and after, will be extremely busy in the area of campus, so folks should take heed. And I will send out an email with links with additional information, so the specific times and information is available.
You don't know when what the span of the viewing will be then?
I believe it's 4 to 8 on Monday evening.
Okay. Me, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. I'd ask for public comment, but seeing none, we will move on. The next item of business is to set our next meeting date, and I have to inform that we tentatively had scheduled to be Thursday, November 2nd, and I will not be able to be, I'm not in town that day, I won't be able to be there for that. So with your indulgence, I wonder if we can look at another date. November gets kind of dicey because the following week is probably the second Thursday that both rooms get used for both SWIMAC and Parks and Rec usually, right, Bob? And then we start to move into Thanksgiving area. Would it be possible to move it up 1 week to the 26th of October, since we're not meeting in October anyway? Is that fit for people? I don't think that works. That does not work for you, all right? Okay. How about if we move it to Wednesday, November 8th? That's your anniversary, all right? We'll make a note of that, send you a card.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. What's that? December? That may be the way to go, yeah. Is that all right? That would be December 7th, yeah. You cannot do December 7th, all right? 6th, how about that Wednesday? 6th?
6 so far.
Okay. Okay, and who meets on Wednesdays? No, there is our... Right, so there's only one group that would meet at the most on Wednesday, right? Okay, so 12/6 Wednesday will be our date. That'd be great. If anything comes up, we'll sure to pass the words out or deal with it as we can. So we're getting close to the end here, so does anybody else have any other comment or question? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Any second? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Passes 7-0. Thank you very much, and thank you.